We have microphones. There's a microphone here. There's microphones when we have a normal meeting at each of the spots where the trustees would sit, or in other meetings where the members of the boards of the planning board and whatnot would sit. There's also a microphone there for public comment. I know that people sometimes like to they like to be able to stand. They don't want to come up. I'm not going to make anybody come up if they don't want to come up. But I would ask you to recognize that it's much easier for people to hear you if you're on the mic than if you're not on the mic if you want to make a public comment. I'm going to start with some just a review of kind of about the issue and what the village has done. But we're going to give as much time as we can to people if you want to raise questions to us, if you want to make comments, if you want to make a statement, whatever the case may be. My name again, Joe Rand, Mayor of Nyack. Andy Stewart, the village administrator. I don't see we have any trustees here, but that's not because they're not interested in the issue.
Joe Carlin's coming in right now.
Joe Carlin's is in Albany. He's going to appear with us. He's going to be on Zoom. He'll be able to ask questions that way, be able to follow the meeting. But we didn't want to have too many trustees here because we sometimes then you have a official meeting and then we have certain things we have to go through. So we're trying to keep this more focused on the community than on the board itself. All right, so thank you for coming. I want to review quickly the agenda and give just a quick overview of where the village is. I'm going to give you a quick overview. Then we're going to allow you to ask questions. During the course of that, there are people here from the police department, there are people here from the different social service agencies, both the county as well as nonprofits who provide services to people in need. I might direct some of the questions to them or give them an opportunity to make some statement, explain things that they do. To start, basically about a year and a half ago, really in 2023, we started to see an increase in the amount of panhandling in the downtown. There's always been some degree of panhandling. It's an urban area. There's a lot of people in a concentrated space. Panhandling requires a lot of density. We have more density than really anywhere else in Rockland, combined with relatively affluent population living here in the Nyacks, and a population that is quite honestly very generous and very big-hearted. So it's always been an attraction for people panhandling, but it seemed to become a much bigger issue. And then with the increase in panhandling in 2023, there was also, it tended to have an effect on just the general quality of life in the downtown area, bringing some other issues like public drinking, public urination, things some of the people probably come here want to talk about. That was last year. We took some efforts that I'll talk about now to address that. They seem to reduce the incidence of panhandling, and then all of a sudden, about a year ago, we started to see an increase in people that were camping out in the village square as well as in Memorial Park. We've seen over the last couple of years a number of issues relating to security relating to the Marina Park, the Marina parking lot. That's a different type of issue, but people making noise and causing issues in the parking lot. And so we've been addressing that since last summer. And these things are slow. There is a balance that we've tried to reach. This is a difficult challenge for a small village of 7,000 people with a budget of $6 million. We're talking about societal problems that extend throughout Rockland, throughout the Hudson Valley. We're talking about problems that throughout the whole country that involve interaction of police and social service agencies and nonprofit agencies trying to provide services. And we do not have, for example, a homeless shelter within the county that could be a natural place to try to help address these situations. So just to give you an idea of the kind of things that we've done as a response. Part of it has just been increased coordination with the Orangetown Police Department. The Orangetown Police Department has done a fantastic job they have increased the amount of attention that they've given to the downtown. They increased to some extent the amount of foot patrols that they have done in the downtown, although their main responsibility has been to be responsive to calls, which is easier done if they're in the cars when they can very quickly get to wherever there is a response needed. And within that general approach, they have been trying to give us more attention, just recognizing that we are 7,000 people out of 45,000 people in the town of Orangetown, and we are a very small geographic part of the rest of Orangetown. But yet we do have a disproportionate number of problems because of the density and because some of the other issues that come up with a tight urban area. But we've increased them with them, and they've been very responsive. Basically, what we have asked them to do, they have always done. It is, again, a problem that is pervasive throughout society. We've also done coordination with the social services and nonprofit service agencies. We've worked with them, we've coordinated with them. They have been also very good in trying to help us do direct interaction and engagement with some of the individuals involved. I mean, every one of them who was involved in panhandling last year in 23 and then in 24 was involved with the homeless situation. Those people were all known to the social services agencies. They're all known to us on an individual basis. In some cases, there have been engagements with them on an individual basis to do things like there was one individual who had problems accessing his Social Security, and they helped him access Social Security and get access to funds he otherwise would not have had. The other thing we did last year was that we started a nonprofit called Nyack Cares, which was designed to be part of a campaign to encourage people to give in a meaningful way to a nonprofit fund that was going to then allocate money to agencies that treat the root causes of homelessness and panhandling, like dependency, like dependency, drug addiction, poverty, mental health, and things like that that lead people into these situations. And so we said, rather than give money on the street, where anybody who works in this field will tell you don't give people money on the street, it doesn't help address the problem. We said, let's put the money into addressing the problem directly. That fund has raised a few $1,000s, but it also did raise the salience of the idea that you try to give money in a more meaningful way. And for whatever reason, we definitely had a reduction from last year to this year in panhandling in the downtown. The other things we did this year in response to the increase in people experiencing homelessness or otherwise camping out or staying over, sleeping in the park, sleeping in the square, was we did set new curfews in the park. This required several months of changing the actual laws that govern the code in the village, to change the curfews, which are now set at the parking lot at 10 p.m., in Memorial Park at 10 p.m., and in the village square at midnight, where you're not supposed to be in those places after those hours, which did help the police department and give them clear terms of enforcement for people that might be violating the curfew and in the park or in the square after the curfew hours, giving them a reason to then try to redirect those people to take advantage of the services available to them. We also, and I realize some people are probably going to bring this up, it wasn't an easy decision. Back in November, we removed the benches from Veterans Square. We removed them because they were an attractive place for people. It made the square more attractive as a place to be able to sleep over. We did hear from the nonprofit agencies that work here that you have to take measures to reduce the attractiveness of the option. They have other options, the people that are sleeping in the square, but they will take this option if it's the easiest option available to them and try to encourage them to take advantage of the other services that they can get. And we also, this most recently, when we did that, some of the people that were in the square then moved to Memorial Park, and they set up camp at Memorial Park. And we very recently, in the last week, we've given them notice that they cannot be sleeping overnight in the park. No one's allowed to sleep overnight in the park. And we've removed any encampments in the park, giving them notice that we would remove them. Most of them took most of those things that were in the park and left them for us to pick up at the trash cans. Some other issues, there are now cameras at in the parking lot of the marina parking lot. There are cameras that are on 24/7. They monitor. We have availability to monitor them. The police have the availability to monitor them. We're looking at putting cameras on the that would then face the Veterans Square. And we've worked with private property owners who, particularly for some of the buildings in downtown that are unoccupied currently, they're for rent or for sale, that were also being used, particularly if they had a deep vestibule that were being used, people were sleeping out in there. We can't do anything about that, that's private property, but we can encourage the property owners to coordinate with the police if someone's going to be staying there. That obviously, is also something that we don't want to have happening in the downtown. So that was also something that was addressed. We've addressed those with private property owners, and in many cases that has been reduced. The result recently is that we have had a reduction in the number of people that are sleeping in Veterans Square. We've had more recently a reduction, although not 100%, in Memorial Park, although that was, we've only recently really tried to tackle that issue. We've also definitely had a reduction in people sleeping in the square of the old Dungeon Den or the Up Lounge or whatever the other places that people were there. There has been a reduction. There definitely was a reduction this year in panhandling, particularly aggressive panhandling in the downtown. We're not where we'd like to be at 100%, but we are certainly better than we were a year and a half ago with relation to panhandling and where we were 4 or 5 months ago, even 3 months ago, in relation to people experiencing homelessness and camping out in the public areas. We have one other measure that we have tried to take, we just haven't been able to execute on it yet, is that we did approve in our May budgeting, which became effective in June. We approved a position for what we at the time were calling somebody who would be a constable, who would walk a beat, who would not be a police officer. They would not have police responsibilities. They would mostly be eyes and ears, but they would be able to enforce the village codes relation to certain code offenses that have created some of the issues that we talk about, like public drinking, urination, violation of curfew, and that would coordinate with the police. The position we had took us a while to get it approved by civil service, which is a much bigger, took much more time than we expected it to take in terms of defining what the position would be. They were very focused on making it a code enforcement position, which are all characterized by building code violations, and we tried to make it clear that this is not going to be somebody going into houses the way our building inspector does. It's going to be somebody who's mostly going to be responding to quality of life issues in the downtown. And we finally found a job description that we could use for this. So we've had the job open for a couple of months. We've not yet found somebody to take the job. It's a part-time job. It doesn't pay, terrible. Is it $25 an hour? And it's a part-time job, and the hours aren't great because we need people at night and we need people on the weekends. So we haven't been able to find that, but we've had some leads recently of people who have applied for the position or have expressed interest in the position, and we're hopeful that we'll have somebody in that position by the end of the month. And because we didn't fill it for the first 6 months, we might be able to increase the hours for the next few months because we were budgeted for a full year at part-time. We might be able to get 4 or 5 months at more time going forward. And we think that will make a difference because there'll be somebody that will be on the ground more often than the police are able to do, because the police have other responsibilities throughout Orangetown. Okay, with that said, I'm going to open up and people, we didn't get a list, so people would just have to raise their hand and come up as they want to speak. I did want, if someone is here from any of the social service agencies, if I could ask you just to raise your hand, and I would have you come up just to, so if separate you up. I know you were going to be here. Is anybody here from?
Joan Silvestri, DSS.
Joan Silvestri, DSS. Elaine Philhauer from Soup Angels. Alan Cram was, I think, going to call in. And Luann Kelly from Catholic Charities. Or anything here? Okay. Would you mind just so you don't want to come up? You're fine there. Okay. If people have questions, you can raise them for them.
Charities. And we run the step program for the county solutions and.
Let me give her the microphone.
Can't hear you.
Is that working?
Hi, I'm Luann Kelly from Catholic Charities. We run the STEP program funded by the County of Rockland. It's Solutions to End Homelessness program. And next to me, I have one of our coordinators, and that is Rebecca. And she's one of two people that we have running that program.
Good evening, I'm Joan Silvestri of Services. I have Laura Donahue with me who runs our warming assemblies and most of housing programs, and we Brian Messenger all the way in the back who runs all of the eligibility.
Okay, so we might have questions that I might bring you on to address.
Hi, I'm Susan Porter. I'm the acting commissioner of mental health in the county.
Oh, great.
And with me is Mary Alpena, and she's the coordinator of planning and oversees adult mental health services and services for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities.
Wonderful, thank you. And also, I just let you know, we have Detective Sergeant Anthony Palazzolo is here as well. We have some limitations on the kind of questions that can be addressed by some representative of the police because they don't set, the individuals don't set the police department policies. And so if we do have questions that involve police, in some cases, I might take the questions and write them down. And we do have a meeting with the police in about 2 weeks, and I will issue a public kind of report on, we'll ask the questions, we'll take down the answers, we'll be able to talk to the chief directly, and then we will issue public reports so people can look at it that way, but we may not be able to answer the questions directly within this meeting. Okay, so is anybody else here that we missed that was from representative of one of the agencies that might be able to shed some light on some of the questions people might have tonight? Okay.
What about, is Soup Angels here somewhere?
Is anybody from Soup Angels?
No.
People are waving at each other, no one's here from Soup Angels, okay. All right, well, thank you all for being here. I will, in no particular order, if you have a question or a comment, why don't we do this? Why don't we just move this out? Oh, I should also mention that we have Julia Brozier from News 12 is here. This is a matter of public interest, so they're here. That's what the camera is. We also have this meeting going out on YouTube, on the Village of Nyack channel, and it's also, we have a couple people that have Zoom, that are participants in the Zoom, namely Joe Carlin and maybe somebody else who's there on the inside the Zoom to be able to respond, so they can ask a question as opposed to just watching it on YouTube. All right, anybody have questions, please, but please, I'm gonna ask you to use the mic.
I'll leave this one here and I'll leave it close to the mic for candidates.
And you got it.
Looks like I should do this. All right.
Please just state your name and whether or not you live in the village.
Hi, I'm Dory. I live right on Main Street. And I understand the dilemma. I've been here about 5 years now. Joe, the person that you spoke of, they had the social security number. He went to a shelter, got beaten up horribly. They took all of his money and he's back over by bus station. So my concern is, I understand that everybody's upset. Everybody feels like it's ruining the neighborhood. But I just feel like every time I hear this, it sounds like the line from Scrooge. Where are they supposed to go? What are they supposed to do? We're running them out of our neighborhood to where? That's my concern.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, go ahead.
I'm Mary Ann Allen. I've been in this town for about 48, 49 years. I have a business on Main Street, Olives. I also have the sauerkraut restaurant next door and a hair salon and 2 buildings. So I'm on Main Street right next door to Cards Plus, which doesn't sell any cards anymore. They sell beer and they sell lottery tickets. And so basically, that seems to be the root of the problems in the town. The way I see it, I know next door, we are next door to, we are sandwiched between this business, Cards Plus. I spoke to the landlord of the building that rents to Cards Plus, and she didn't reply. She doesn't seem to be interested. I mean, I own my buildings. I would never rent to somebody who allows drug dealing outside. Tonight, on my way here, I took a video of 6 people drinking out of a bag in a bottle in a bag, right outside on the sidewalks. Okay, 6 people tonight on my way here. Was it last night? No, the night before last, I had a bar back at my bar who left to go home, went into his car in the parking lot right across the street from me, and he got accosted by Alex. You know Alex without the teeth in the front? Forced his way into the car, okay? Made him go to the ATM machine and withdraw money because he needed a fix. This is a serious problem, and it's affecting, I know, businesses all over town. Everyone is up in awe. It's travesty for the business community. I pay a huge amount of taxes. My business is suffering tremendously having that place next door. The police ran after Alex around the back to the alleyway where another person's camping out in the alleyway right near the firehouse. Okay, they're camping out across, maybe they're not in Memorial Park and maybe they're not in the park in the center of the square, but now they're going to the parking lot because now it's going to be people that are parking there are targeted now. This is dangerous. This is unacceptable.
May I ask, did you report the incident?
Yes, it was reported. Yes, it was reported. Nothing was done. He's still out on the street.
Well,
And now the last time he had a gun, okay, he's still last week, 2 weeks ago. Huh? Last week he had a gun. He's still out on the street. Why? Why? He's a criminal.
I won't
He's
speak for
gonna
the
kill
police,
somebody.
but the police have expressed that in many of these cases,
They let him go when he has a gun?
well,
Why?
I don't know, I can't speak to any independence. What I will say is that on general, people, it's not like you think about in the movies that someone for an incident gets taken in and they're kept overnight or they're put in. The laws are such that those individuals are often given violation, disappearance tickets or some form of violation like that, but they are not held.
Mail it to the nearest garbage can?
I don't speak for the police. I'm not a police officer, nor do I set the laws that govern the criminal justice system. I'm just telling you what happens, and that's I think it's frustrating for you. I think it's frustrating, I think, for anyone who's charged with trying to enforce the laws here.
I think it's the responsibility.
But
of the
I will
business.
say this, we have had conversations with the person running the card store. Andy, you had a whole meeting with you want to talk about what they said?
So I'm trying to get the Zoom right there.
The card store is an issue. We realize that is an attractive, that is basically a
It's
place
a hub.
where it is attracting a lot of
It's the
attention.
hub of all those people. A hub.
I'm sorry?
We here represent the
Do
question.
you represent the card shop?
That's
Yeah.
All right. Well, why don't I give you an opportunity
Sure.
to talk about this? Can you pass the mic up? Can you pass the mic?
You asked for his name, please.
Yeah, please state your name for
Yes.
this.
Hello, my name is Brett Roland. I'm a former business owner in Nyack for over 15 years. I owned a funny business, the comic book and toy store. It was a couple of years ago. Has nothing to do with the quality of life. Has to do with the business of comic books. But on the note of 116 Main Street, I have a business owner right here. His responsibility is his life, his livelihood, right? He owns a store. Anna owned that store 20 years. She sold individual beers for 20 years. She did. And I'm not going to get into an arguing,
I'm just gonna make.
but I will say this
I'm
about,
gonna say, when one person speaks, we're gonna respect the person speaking. Everyone's gonna have an opportunity, but we're not gonna crosstalk. I'm gonna shut it down as soon as it happens, okay? Everybody gets respect when they have the mic.
100%. So the problem is that we discussed the issue and we're going to put big no loitering signs outside. The problem is the one guy that works inside, his life is being threatened every time he goes outside because of the people that are outside. We can't be responsible for who goes into his store to buy anything because it also helps a lot of the other people that are in that neighborhood because they sell a lot of household goods and small items, things that people need all the time. besides lottery tickets and besides beer, they sell food, they sell drink, they sell everything that you need, aspirin, Band-Aids, you name it. So it's a business that he's had for quite a few years now. It's just because more and more people are drinking on the street. The police presence has been, you say it's getting better. Years ago, we used to have a beat cop that used to walk the street all the time. And he had a rapport with all the people that were on the street. I get you're trying to do that now with this program, which would help. You know, if you have somebody that would have a rapport with some of the people. But the business owner was here tonight and he went outside and he has a little bit more respect, I guess, from the people that are outside. And he told them, please, do your business somewhere else. There's only so much they can do. Especially when I told them we're going to be putting big, giant, no loitering signs right in the windows. But that's all we can do. We can't ask for anything else. And speaking on the drug use, there's a lot of drug use going on. As a matter of fact, there happens to be open tables outside of Olives that most of the people do their drugs sitting at her benches overnight. But that's another story. But thank you for the time.
All right, thank you for addressing some of that issue. I appreciate you being here very much because you must have known that this was going to come up and that you'd be.
I also am representing the building owner because I do maintenance on the building, but she's in Florida and she can't get up here for this meeting. I need to know what's happening.
I think it would be good for us to have more of a engagement with the owner as well as with the owner of the business. I know Andy had a meeting with the owner, with the person that runs the business or the manager. I think you had a conversation with.
Yeah, with Gary. Yeah,
Yeah.
he feels very threatened because, I mean, he's one guy, he's by himself. If they gang up on him, then that's it. It's all over.
I'm going to remind you, and I'm going to remind, I think your point is well taken that the problem isn't necessarily the person who runs the business, is the people who are frequenting the business, or some of the people that are frequenting the business, as opposed to there's a lot of people frequenting the business who are there's no issue at all. I'm going to remind everybody, and if you don't have this in your phone, I want you to open up your phone right now and put this number into your phone, which is the OPD direct line of 359-3700. If you don't have it, literally put it in your phone right now. If something happens, that's the number to call. Don't call 911. I mean, you can call 911, feel free, but that gets routed in a different way. You call 359-3700. You're going to get directly somebody who is that staff 24 hours a day and someone's there to answer questions. And they know the area and they have experience answering questions in the area. I know, I was up at Walgreens and saw somebody just blatantly shoplifting at Walgreens maybe a month or two ago. And I called the number and there was a car there within about a minute and a half from when I called, which is a lot of what they want to do. They want to be responsive to the calls. And they were there. I told them where the guy had walked off to and what I'd seen. They are responsive and they do come. And I think people sometimes have this sense of learned helplessness where they say, well, there's no point in calling the police. And that's not true. You got to call. You got to call them. And they will log the call. And if they see patterns, that helps them. And if you don't call, they don't know about it. So you have to make the call. And I would say to you,
I did say that to Gary. I said, listen, if there's a form of people in front of your store and you don't want to go out there, call the police.
yes, absolutely.
Say, listen, there's a fight outside. Just say something. Listen, but like you said, Joe, the more you call, the more they're going to see there's a problem there. Now, we did say before we came to this meeting, we did go outside and took a picture out front also of all the guys that were standing there. And we stated to everybody that was out there, which are most of the normals. We said to them, just to let everybody know.
Most of the normals meaning
Most of the people that are always there.
the regulars.
The regulars.
Okay. I just didn't mean, I don't want to, normals is an odd term.
The normals.
The regulars who are frequenting in front of the
The
business.
regular
Okay.
people that are free. We said to them straight up, by the way, we're having a meeting right now about you guys, just to give you a heads up. And they all looked at me and said, we know, just to give you a heads up.
All right, well, I think that, like I said, don't indulge the learned helplessness of, because a lot of times the police will come and they'll scatter. There's nothing to do. And if the police come and there's nothing happening, there's nothing they can do. If the person's, if they're drinking open container, they can. If they're doing anything else, they can. But a lot of times they come, it's just people congregating. And that's, the police don't enforce those, they don't say, they might say, hey, why don't you guys break it up? But no one's getting an appearance ticket or anything like that for just being in certain places at a certain time. It's just
I
something the law
love
works.
this town and I want every business to thrive in this town.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. All right. And thank you very much for being here. And hopefully we'll, we've got contact information. We'll follow up on some of the things that we can do with regard to that. Let me grab that.
Mike, just you have the mic with you then?
We're gonna do everything we can.
All right, another hand. All right, I'll let you, but we're gonna try to get a lot of people in.
It's hard to complain about people doing drugs if we have 4 dispensaries in walking distance.
It's not that kind of deal. Those guys aren't getting theirs from the dispensaries, trust me.
So we have dispensaries in walking distance. How do you complain about drugs? We have dispensaries in walking distance.
Okay, so how do we complain about drugs when there are legal dispensaries within walking distance? Well, there's only one legal dispensary in Nyack.
Well, there was 2, one was not legal. One got shut down.
Okay, well, there's only one legal dispensary, one got shut down. I'm not, but there's 4, you say?
Well, we have the one next to Casa. We have the one up the hill now next to Hudson, and then we have the old Park Place. And then we have the one down on Franklin.
All right, the only legal, if you're talking about illegal dispensaries, then make the calls about those as well. The only legal dispensary in the village of Nyack is the one on Route 59 up by the old car place next to Old World. That's the only legal one. The other ones are not legal dispensaries. Now they're smoke shops who sell paraphernalia, and that often has been a place. Those often have, I won't say about any particular store here, but generally speaking, there has been an issue. There has been an issue statewide of the paraphernalia shops getting around the law by certain ways. But that's an issue, again, it's not something anything the village can do. It's an issue for the police as well as for the state authority that has done, quite frankly, an absolutely horrific job of rolling out the legal marijuana. It's just awful in terms of giving licenses and managing the whole process. And we should have, I don't mind, legal dispensary is, I don't have a problem if they're following the rules and they get the license any more than I have a problem with the bar being open in Nyack, or a liquor store. But the illegal ones, we have more of an issue with that. But if you see something happening like that, if someone's getting that, make sure you call that 359-3700 number. Question?
Hand raised, please. Yes.
I'm wondering if you could also supply a number that we can use to call that isn't the police if we'd like to call someone who needs social services, someone who is in a mental health crisis, so that we don't have to rely on the police department for that. And I'm also curious why this person that we're looking to employ to be a constable in the village doesn't have social service background as part of the requirements that we're looking for, so that we can build relationships and ask people why they're in distress in the first place. And maybe if we approach it from that mindset, rather than trying to solve band-aids on the problem, really getting to the root of the problem. And I just recently found out that one of the people that was homeless in the village in Hezekiah Easter Square, which is what it's called, in addition to being called Veterans Park, recently lost her son and had lost her first son, 4 years ago, just recently lost her son. And she's someone that I've known her for decades, and I've never seen her have that kind of crisis before. And I only recently found out that part of the reasons why she's in this crisis is that she lost her second son. And so I didn't know that about her. And part of what I want to know is, why aren't we having part of the requirement of that person who's walking that beat, asking questions about why people are in crisis in the first place?
All right, I'm going to just about a technical matter. In order to hire someone to have that role, we need to find a job description within the county civil service that meets the criteria of the person that we're looking for. What I will tell you is it took us 3 months of working with them. They did not want, to this day, there is a constable position approved in civil service. There was a position we said, this position is perfect. This is exactly what we're looking for. And they said, no, you can't have that. And their reasoning was that role was approved in Rockland County for a very limited purpose in a different village, and they weren't going to allow its expansion. So we eventually had to find as round a hole as we could to fit our round peg. And the description is what we had. But I will tell you, the job description is what we're required to put out to the public as part of the civil service requirement. Who we hire, as long as they meet those criteria, that person could have other qualities as well. And we are looking for someone that we want someone who's got experience dealing with people in these situations. That I wouldn't necessarily have to be formal experience working at a nonprofit or anything like that, any more than it would be formal experience working in any kind of police work. But that is something that we want that person to do, and it is going to be a charge of coordinating with the social service agencies.
You didn't see that list in your job description.
It's not in the job description, because I just explained that the job description is required by civil service to be a certain description. There's a lot of things in the job description I don't like. I don't like the fact that it mentions constructions. I don't want this person doing any sort of construction, but yet that has to be there because that's what the county required. That this has been part of my education in municipal governance, that I don't just get to say I want to hire someone to do a job and I can hire someone to do that job. I have to go through specific hoops, and this is the hoop. But I say, it's like literally, we do not have the perfectly round hole for this job that we want, but we have something that's close enough. And then as long as someone meets their criteria, we can have whatever criteria we want when we hire somebody. As I said, we haven't even had anybody who we haven't had someone who applied who we thought was appropriate for the role on a variety of levels, not just the level you're talking about, which is something that is part of our internal criteria when we do evaluate the people that are applying for this. To go to your other question for the number, it's an imperfect thing. And again, this is something that goes well beyond Nyack and the confines of Nyack. There is a phone number that is maintained by the United Way.
There's a crisis hotline too.
There's a crisis hotline with the United Way. I will not speak to them, nor will I speak about. I mean, I don't represent the United Way, but they do have a number. Can we get that number? Can we just have it so I can throw it out there? I don't have it offhand.
United Way.
The United Way hotline. Does anybody have it from any of the departments? Do you know what that is? It's a national line, so it's not locally based. No, they have there's an actual phone number.
Yeah, there's a 211.
There is a 211.
But there's also crisis response groups. I'm sure Sergeant Palazzolo can give us the name of it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Pulled up the phone, one recorded. Rockland County has what's called a behavioral health response. Take care of the mics there. Right next to you. Rockland County has what's called a behavioral health response team. You don't need police intervention in order to get them called out. Their phone number 845-517-0400. We do work in partnership with the behavioral health response team. So sometimes let's say best intentions want to help somebody who's in crisis. And it escalates, then they can call the police. Give them number 845-517-0400. I mean, add that to your phone as well. Do you have that? So if you see somebody
Experiencing some sort of mental health crisis, that's the number to call for the behavioral health response team that works out of the county, right? It's a county, not town, it's county. Okay.
Can you repeat it?
The number is 845-517-0400. 845-517-0400. 845-517-0400. Can I, in response to Chris's question, does anybody want to address that from a like an on the ground perspective of the kinds of things that we do on response when we have something like that?
Yeah, I'm the acting commissioner for mental health, and the behavioral health response team is our mobile mental health crisis team. So it is not a county service, it's not county employees, it's a contract that the county holds with an agency that provides this service. So that is available, and they answer calls 24/7. And there's also there's 988, which I think most people are familiar with. That is more of a hotline, and BIRD is a acronym, is a mobile response. That is the mobile crisis team for Rockland.
I could, good.
So
Karen.
just walk me through what happens if you call this number. And like if somebody going down the street, if you just observe someone who's maybe in distress or acting erratically, if you call, report it, what happens?
Well, typically, it's best to have someone's participation in the process, right? It's not always possible, right? But that would be ideal, right? That someone is looking for help. That's not always the case. If you were to call BIRD in that kind of a situation, they may be on a call where
it's a very high acuity situation, right? Where maybe somebody is stressed, suicidal ideation or thoughts of harming other people. But they should be able to respond on some level. So if they're gonna respond, it would be, they would maybe come to the site and try to engage the person. And talk to them about what their needs are. I think what sometimes gets tricky is that, the law always tries to balance the safety of the community with the rights of the individual. And that, people, unless they reach a fairly high threshold of concern, they don't have to accept treatment or participate in treatment, right? And I think that that's a hard thing sometimes to get our heads around, but that is the way, that is the way the law balances it, right? The safety of the community with the rights of the individual. So if the behavioral health response team were to arrive and the person did not appear to be at like acute risk of harming himself or others or themselves or others, then that person would not be transported, right, to an emergency room, right? And that's really the legal authority that these services have, whether it's the police departments or the mobile crisis team, or like an involved team member. They can authorize involuntary transport to the emergency room. Again, if the person appears to be at acute risk of harming themselves or others, right? Or they're unable to care for themselves at a very high level. And then they would go to the emergency room and they would have an evaluation. And the evaluation is really about whether or not they meet the criteria for admission to an inpatient psychiatric unit, which is Nyack Hospital in Rockland County. That
And it's just the same
bar-
criteria, that the hospital will only hold them if they're a danger to themselves or others.
Right, or if they want to be inpatient, right? Some people want to be inpatient, then it's voluntary, and then that's a whole different thing. But yeah, that's typically the response.
Anybody else want to address this? Listen, it is an incredibly complicated and difficult challenge. You mentioned the balance, that there's always a balance, that we want to try to be sensitive to the needs of the people who are in these situations, while at the same time recognizing that that the public has a right and expectation to be able to use public spaces, and if they're prevented from using public spaces, that's not. We have to manage that process. So balancing those rights is a very tough thing, and it's particularly difficult because it requires the interplay of so many different authorities. The village, the town, the police, the county services, the nonprofit services, the contracted services, like you mentioned, that all have a different part to play in it. It's good that we're getting a bunch of different things, but I want to make sure we kind of isolate that. When we're talking about this, we're not necessarily talking about the issue going on in the card store. The card store is different. That's just people who are drinking out in public after often picking up the beers at the Card Plus store or somewhere else for that matter. And in addition, people who are doing illegal substances, either acquiring them there or acquiring them nearby, or using them there or using them nearby. That's slightly different in terms of its in terms of the focus that we would put on it. It's less of a mental health, more of a dependency issue, requires different approaches. Anything else from up here, from over here? I had this gentleman.
She said,
Okay, so you were going to say, okay, so I'll go. Oh, and after this, I do have Joe Collin, who was on the Zoom, who wanted to say something, so I'll have him come in next on speakerphone. After him.
I just have, because she was talking.
Name and
Minerva
dealer
Parker. I've been around for a very long time. And I work at,
just pull the mic up to your mouth.
I work with the Nyack Library. I've been there for 7 years, president. I have a question about the homeless factor. I mean, it affects us at the library too. But a lot of the homeless aren't from this community. It's one thing when they're from the community and they're homeless, but now they're coming from. All of those folks you say have left Main Street and the park. Walk in the library, you will see them there. And I don't know, but I know our stats are dropping. People have the right not to come in there, and that kind of behavior is replaced. We are trying to address it, but they have rights too. If they're not harming anyone, if they are not doing anything bad, they're allowed to be in the library like anyone else.
course.
but it's very difficult to be around them when you're trying to conduct library business and just other, hygiene, all these different things. So what do we do about people coming into this village and becoming our homeless?
That's a good question, because that is a lot of the problem. I mentioned before about the panhandling. We had panhandling issues in the village. I mean, I've lived here since 2009. We had it from the beginning. We were there, but there were identifiable people. It was people that were, and in those cases, there were people from the community, or they'd been in the community for so long that they were generally accepted as part of the milieu of being downtown. And then about a year and a half ago, that changed. In 2000, that was all I heard when I had meetings like this. All I heard was that there's a bunch of people that I've never seen before that are coming down, that word got out, and then people are coming from other parts of the county. Now, everybody has a right. People have a right to free speech. They all have a right to be in public spaces. They all have a right to be in the library. All of these things are true, whether they're from Nyack or not from Nyack. But you're right that it is challenged when we're an attractive place that attracts this kind of situation more than, say, another hamlet in Clarkstown or Orangetown or any other place in the county, that it becomes our issue when it's really a county-wide issue. And there's different layers of government that have to be responsive to this. And we're working with the county services, we're working as we can, but again, it's a lot of moving parts that have to take place. All right, let me let Joe Carlin want to come in. Is he on the? Oh, he's on here. You want to put him on speaker here? I'll put him on the microphone. I'll put him on that.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you extraordinarily well, actually. That's really quite
Good,
Oh,
good.
Hear you well. Speak up.
Okay, well, I apologize for not being able to be there in person, but I had a prior commitment. I'm up in Albany for my day job. But I want to thank the mayor and Andy for making this happen. And I've been listening. A couple of things I wanted to point out. Just bear with me a second while I turn off my microphone because I'm getting a feedback here. Okay. So first of all, regarding the increase in panhandling last year, one of the reasons is that the TOR, Transit of Rockland buses, are free. This is as a result of the pandemic and the ARPA funds. So anybody can jump on any of those buses and go to anywhere in the county. And that is what's causing a lot of the current people coming into the village, because not only can they come into the village for free, but and good for us, we have all of these social services like the Soup Angels, Sunday night dinner, and so forth that people take advantage of. Okay, that being said, one thing that I heard about the situation with the convenience store, the Cards Plus, and I walk around the village quite often, and I see it all the time. Guys congregating there, drinking from open containers, doing all sorts of, I wouldn't say nefarious things, but questionable things. And one thing I wanted to, and I suggested a while back, and is for the police to park their car in front of the store. Now, I got pushback from two people. I got pushback from Detective Palazzolo because he said, well, the problem is that the police don't have the ingress and the outgress for moving in case they get a call. And I also had, believe it or not, from one of the business owners there, a lot of pushback, not the Cards Plus, but and I tell him, Marianne's there. Marianne brought it up, Marianne Olive, that she didn't want to impede upon the visitors or her customers to her club. But I think that would go a long way towards deterring that type of activity there. And I think there's something that we should look into, maybe have a dedicated spot for a police car right there at the end of that parking strip. And this will, I think, go a long way to solving that problem. Also, I just wanted to say and commend the police. I've been in downtown where I've had guys in distress. And what I did was I called the police. The police come and they are very, I mean, these guys, they have great training and they handle everybody with respect and they got the services that these guys needed. So I think that's also one avenue that people can do is, and as Joe gave out the phone number for the police, call the police. They'll be able to determine what is the next step forward. And that's all I have to say. And I turn it back over to Joe. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate you weighing in. All right, let's go to the idea of trying to do something in front of the card store, we've investigated, we'll continue to investigate it.
Good idea.
But again, that's going at one part of the issue, there's other parts. He also did bring up that I was referencing the fact that we had people coming, as you did, people coming from outside the village that were coming to the village, and part of that was the tour bus, which, yes, it's great that the tour bus is free. It's wonderful that people have free transportation within Rockland County. But you know, things that are good can often have consequences that might be challenging. We have where's the mic now?
Joe, do you know why the bus? Why are they?
They were free. They were made free during COVID. And they just haven't changed back. And they talk about making them not free again. But there's obviously lots of good reasons to provide free transportation within Rockland County. And as long as they're budgeted for it, I guess the county is going to continue to do that. And I'm not about to go to the county and say, hey, could you stop the free buses? I don't want people coming tonight. That's not something that I would do either on a substantive level or that I think would be, good PR for the village. You know, we want people to take advantage of free buses. We just would like very much for, listen, what I would really like would be for the county to have a homeless shelter. That would be really great. That's something that the county should have. The county has the resources for it. We do not have the resources for it. Like I said, we're 7,000 people with a $6 million budget. That $6 million budget, if I showed you where the budget is allocated, the amount of influence that Joe Carlin and I and Pascal and all the other trustees that we have over the budget is about 5%. That's how much we can actually decide to allocate every year outside of, facilities that we have to pay for and salaries that we have to pay and everything else that, comes basically built in as our yearly nut that we have to cover. The rest of it's about 5%. And a good portion of that goes towards services that you actually would value very highly, like the Nyack Center, I can't remember what we have so few things that we have discretion over that we can adjust every year. But the summer camp and some of the other services provided by Nyack Center are always the ones that I focus on because that's the ones that make me happy that we actually are spending money in a productive way. All right, questions? Yes.
It's more of some comments.
Sure.
You talked about the county not having a full-time shelter. One, the county does have a full-time shelter for families. So any families involving children, we have a full-time shelter for them. I think people have to understand what a shelter is, how it operates, and whether or not it's a benefit to the county to have one or not, or do we have an ultimate plan in place? We do have an ultimate plan. It's whether the folks that you're speaking of will take advantage of that ultimate plan. Now, as an example, the warming center has been open almost continuously for the last 3 weeks, which means that during the daytime as well.
Explain that.
Okay, so we don't have to by law have it open, but the county has chosen from the very beginning, anytime it remains under 32 degrees, we keep that warming center open, whether we operate it or before us Catholic Charities on our behalf. The issue is, many of the people that you're speaking of have no interest of staying in a shelter, nor are they interested in staying in a shelter, particularly during the day. So even though it's been freezing every day, the shelter and the warming center has been open, that has the average number of people that stay there is 5 throughout the entire county. Most days it's 2. And we go through the entire expense of that. Where do they go? They want to go to your library. They want to go to the mall. They want to come to downtown Nyack or downtown Spring Valley. They want to go back to have an activity. They have a routine. This is what they choose to do. And so having a full-time shelter is not the answer. And furthermore, unlike what people think about a shelter, I could just go there Well, there's an admission process. There's criteria for entering a shelter. There's state laws about that. There's funding for all of that. And basically you have to be eligible to receive that services. So you can't just decide, you know what, I have $500,000, but I don't want to pay rent, so I'm gonna go live at a shelter. We make you use all of your assets to do that. The law requires that. And what you cannot meet on your own, we would meet. We have families that are in a family shelter that the parents are working. They make a contribution by law for their own housing while in the shelter. Most people don't realize that's a requirement of law. That, so if you're making money, you have to contribute that to the shelter. The folks you're talking about have no interest in doing this. Many of the people you're speaking of receive Social Security disability payments and have chosen to not use that on their housing. We would require them to use them. Anybody who comes to social services, or that is referred to us, that meets the criteria for engaging in services, so they don't have the resources, they don't have Social Security disability in place. They are eligible for our services. If we don't have a full-time shelter, we put them up in a hotel, even if they're single, because they're meeting all the requirements, searching out for employment. You can't just, again, come to social service and say, I don't feel like working, I don't have an interest in that, I'm trying to choose to drink or do drugs or just hang around. You need to be engaged in looking for employment or training, or to be excused on a medical or seeking treatment in a facility, and we can arrange for that treatment to happen, and we do that every day. We have people that we do that every day for. As long as they're complying with all that, they are eligible. And if they're eligible, whether I have a full-time shelter or not, I put them in a hotel room.
Yeah, that,
Because the number that we have in Rockland that are interested in that, and normally we have very few people, less than a handful a year that we have in a hotel that are qualifying for this type of housing. So if we opened a shelter, we'd have a handful of people in it. It's not that we would have a lot of folks there. The folks that you're talking about are the same folks, like New York City has hundreds of thousands of shelters. There's still people sleeping on the street, panhandling, doing all the things you're describing. They're choosing not to go to the shelter. I am concerned about the comment in the back that said someone came to our shelter and they were beat up. They did not come to a Rockland County shelter. One, we don't have one for seniors. We do have a warming center. We have security that's there, as well as social workers and others that are there. We have no report of that ever happening there. So I'm not really sure about that unless the person came from New York City or went to New York City, got beat up at a shelter, or went somewhere else. As far as
that one person, I'm not gonna call it his name, it's not like to call it his name, everybody knows in the neighborhood. It's my understanding, he went to the warming center up in Spring Valley, and a couple of guys just beat him to the pulp, stole everything from him. I can tell you.
okay, you'll tell, yeah, if you could send that to me, I'd appreciate that, because we have security there. We have the sheriff that has controls that, is constant 24/7. And we have it on 24 hours surveillance by camera, inside and outside. We have no reports of that happening. Do we have reports of a scuffle now and then? Usually not involving the folks, it's usually involving some resistance to direction from the folks that are working there. We don't have a report like that. But you can share that with us, or approximate date. We can go back to.
we can get, we
Certainly don't have-
can get you the name and the information, so if of what it's alleged. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
And we also.
So we'll get that
we have
information, because
drivers
it may
in the
not be-
vans, that's why we do it that way, so that we have get reports. We don't have anything. Like
The, what comes up a lot when you talk to the social service people is that dynamic of people that just, the services are there, and that's our hope. I mean, what we want to do as a village is give people better options than sleeping in the cold in our Hezekiah Easter Square or in Memorial Park. Either of those places, we want them not to be outside. I don't want someone to freeze to death in Memorial Park. I don't want I just think it's obviously not humane to have people living in those situations. We want them to take advantage of the services that are there. And as you say, there are services available sometimes they won't take advantage of them, and that's where we end up with a difficult challenge. And
I do
And-
want to say though, Catholic Charities is here, who, I don't want to speak on their behalf, but we do have a contract with them under the STEP program. We received this grant under, some COVID money that was there, and what we did is we put these outreach teams together, so they do go and outreach, they make sure the folks are safe. They encourage them all the time to come in for services, they'll transport, they'll call us. We'll try to go out and get them, we'll do all those kinds of things. I want to say that when that COVID money ran out, though, the county executive did allocate out of county funds, which was never a county charge before, $800,000 for us to do this countywide.
I will
So
say the
we
Catholic
are-
Charities does I've seen them on the ground, they've come to my office, we've met with them, talked about what they do. They do good work. It is, it is a very difficult and complicated problem. And it's particularly complicated that and that's why, to some extent, our approach, which is the only approach the village has. The village doesn't, these are all outside Nyack agencies and and it's really a problem, it's a countywide problem. And with what we can do, because we do want to preserve our public spaces, is that we have to make our public spaces unavailable as an option in order to encourage them to take advantage of the options that are there. Because as you say, if the option to sleep in the square is there, that they might take it because they prefer to have their own routine, as you said. And so we're trying to make it tougher for them to do that. And I know there are people who are going to say it's incredibly insensitive, but I don't know what other option we have. We can't have people camping out in the public spaces. We can't. It's not good for them. It's not good for the community. It's not good for anybody if that's happening. And so we've been trying to address that. We're going to continue to try to address that. We did have a lot of success last year with the panhandling. That was definitely down this year outside of the people in the square. But all of a sudden now, one problem goes down, another problem comes up, and that was the homelessness issue and people in the square and in the park. More questions or comments? Let me just move it over. I'll get to you, Carol. Let me ask something before.
Yeah, hi, I'm Josh Slagle. I live in Nyack for about 10 years now. I don't know if I can ask two questions, one about homeless stuff and one about law enforcement. So I'll try and see what happens, I guess. But the homeless question was, you mentioned they have to meet certain criteria to be eligible for services. I know a lot of homeless people are mentally ill and incompetent, not able to navigate any sort of bureaucratic process like meeting criteria. And I also know a lot of homeless people end up losing their IDs and don't have any kind of paper trail, documenting their assets and employment, all those sorts of things. So I'm curious where that group of people fits into this equation, because I understand you have services for people who can sort of document, prove, et cetera, that they're eligible. So and then you also described the people who choose not to participate, but I think there's probably a third group in there that should maybe be getting services, but is very incompetent or has no paper, whatever it is. So that's question one. And about law enforcement in relation to cars plus issue, I'm curious if it's possible what the legal parameters are for having a video surveillance of that store and law enforcement is observe and or the property owner sharing footage of law enforcement.
Why don't you hand the mic back and I'll let that first question be addressed there. I'll address the second question, which is to say that that's really more of a village question than a police question about us doing video surveillance. We are doing it, like I said, down at the marina. We have considered it for Hezekiah Easter Square. We've also considered it for the area where basically to watch the Fresh Market lot, but it would encompass having the street because it would be wide enough to encompass that. And we have looked at that as well. Just realized that requires us to put cameras on private property. And that's a complicated thing because the rights to be able to, we don't just have the rights to plop down our cameras on that building, the river space building or whatever we now call it, the Fresh Market building. And so it's
like lampposts and things like that.
I don't know if it'd be functional to be able to have a camera on the light post, but we will look at it. I will tell you this,
I do think
it's a good idea. It's something we thought about the same way that we thought about trying to maybe create a dedicated spot in front of Car Plus, because it is an isolated issue. Now, I will tell you, the problem is that what we like to do is like to address why people are there and how do we get them to not be there, because the problem is gonna be, they'll move somewhere else. The same way that you won't see people in the square sleeping, but they're now sleeping in the park, that we moved the problem to different places, or they're now in the library because they can't camp out in the park, or whatever the case may be. So there is a little bit of like that you're just pushing the problem to a different area, but your point's well taken, and it's something that we are looking at, and I'll follow up with you. Want to talk to me after the meeting about like if we have a timetable to do something like that. But I'll let you take that first question, which revolves to people who are essentially not competent to make these decisions, but who refuse services.
Okay,
So
so-
refuse, but maybe you would like to
Okay.
receive.
Okay, that's, there are several, of course, and every individual is an individual in this process. But we are, so though, if your question is, I might not have the complete wherewithal or the capability of navigating a bureaucracy. Or maybe I lost my papers, I was homeless once, I was over here, and then I lost my papers. We can navigate that for them. And that usually starts with some of our outreach workers. It starts with simply getting over to social service, complete evaluation. We help people get those documents that we need, and we don't let them go homeless if they're desirous of a place while we get that done. And so nobody walks out of our building hungry or without housing if they're attempting to do the things that need to be done. And so, and we have ways to make that happen, and we do. And we're committed to do that. It's not this, it is in essence a whole lot of laws that all come together that makes it this big bureaucracy, but the folks that are working on the ground on this, I mean, they're not bureaucrats, they're committed to this kind of work. And we help hundreds of thousands of people in this county every year and place people into home, housing that were originally homeless. I do want to point out that, although nationally, the homeless number has risen by about 8 times the number over the last 5 years. In Rockland County, that number has remained relatively stable. And you would think that with this there's about 141 in the last. And that's 141 too many, but there's 141 people. Of that, in all of Rockland. And that number has remained pretty stable within half a dozen people over the last 100 years. And that's because we can get them to the warming center, we can get them engaged in services. We have them up there for about 6 months. My workers are up there, and we're trying to constantly engage them. The first stop in the morning, we try to get them to come to social services, and we'll navigate. The problem then comes to that same question that Dr. Porter suggested in here, is that are they competent? And the level of competency, because I do have in my care and custody division of social services about 40 individuals in this county that I am their guardian because they are not competent to make safety decisions about where they may live, the use of their assets, if any, but that level of getting that, it has to be decreed by a judge. It's a long process, but the criteria is the benchmark is so high. And what that means is that person goes in and says, and the judge says, what are they? You know their name? What day is it? The day, who's present, and then they'll go, okay, do you understand that, you're homeless, you're using your money inappropriately, you're going to eventually die of this, you're out in the cold, you understand that? If the person says yes, that's the criteria. And we can't force ourselves on their rights for self-decision making. And so, again, the laws make the criteria this high, but we do have a number of people that are in my care custody, and they are not homeless right now. They are in appropriate settings, maybe assisted living or other, sometimes they're even in independent apartments. And we have workers that work with them, our adult protective services. And everybody knows CPS, but we do have an adult protective services unit that goes out, and anytime we have an adult that can't care for themselves, we're out there doing that. So again, it kind of leaves the folks that are choosing, and so I say choosing, many of them have serious mental illness, but they're still choosing, and that's, it may not just be the choice that I would make, or you would make about my safety or my life, but it's a choice that they are making, and they are confident on the law. So.
And there are rules against involuntary confinement that are very tough, so that if you think the person's incompetent, there's a lot of things that have to be done in order for you to take control over their disposition of where they can sleep and whatnot. Which is again, another complicating factor. You want to respect and preserve the rights of the individual, but at the same time, you have to go pretty far to get to a point where you make decisions for them. Any hands up? Oh, Carol had a hand up before, so can you pass it back to?
Yeah, Carol Gallione, born and raised. And I just want to kind of redirect, I think, I mean, people are people, and we have the unique privilege actually of living in a really beautiful riverfront town. We have all kinds of services, things walkable, everything that makes it lovely to us makes it lovely to people who don't have homes as well. People are people, there's no difference. So, I like going to the mall or shopping locally in town or sitting on benches in the park. And so do they. And I think that, I wrote down a couple of solutions, just so that I don't ramble, but I think that we can help actually by providing basic necessities like food and shelter through local initiatives. And I mean like local village, because we have a lot of nonprofits and we have a lot of caring people and residents. That's also unique. I think existing organizations offer job training and support, create community outreach programs, and advocate for local policies that address housing needs, all while leveraging the close-knit nature of small town Nyack to foster connections and support systems. I can say I was talking with Susan Wilming before coming here. We have been talking about having a service provider table at Soup Angels, and having maybe once a month contacting a different agency who could represent, and also maybe just having some professional volunteers who could, with a laptop, who could help someone sign up for SNAP or shelter or something. Something as simple as that, but certainly I think we have the resources right here in the community, and I think housing is a big issue as well, the cost of housing, and that's just a whole nother level.
Thank you, Carol. Other comments, questions? Sorry, Sure, just to touch base on a couple of things that we've got IDs, that's a very good thing. You mentioned some people, they don't have IDs, and DSS can help them. The police department, we also go out, we do outreach with Rockland's Council, Alcoholism, Alcohol Dependency, and foundations. We've assisted numerous people to get their IDs. It's not really the police department, we're just there to kind of co-sign and be there with the support agencies, Catholic charities, things like the same people on cities that we work with on a first-name basis in the law. And the foundations can actually take that individual and go to social services, and there's only the sign, even if it's expired, we don't get the fresh ID. But we are out there, the police department, working in partnership. When we're working with the people out on the street, they're our on-house neighbors. It's not that they're not ready, they're just unable at that time to get help. We know who they are, we offer them services, initially they're aware of what's out there. It's very difficult. Sometimes cold for disorders, mental health, and dependency. Oftentimes we're out for outreach. What we do here is that people are too comfortable. When we're performing outreach to somebody who's trying to get the police services, we hear individuals come up and we see people come up and actually hand them food and cash. It's very difficult for somebody to be motivated to not be in a public place in a square. It may be anecdotal, 3 separate instances where somebody came up and gave an individual $100 while providing outreach and integration. It really lessens the services that we can offer. Very often we hear from the people that will provide outreach to, there's rules when you go into housing. They have to abide by curfews and criteria. It's very difficult, but we are out there, if you see somebody. Please call the police, I know we mentioned the individual response team that is out here. Please swear it out. We can't, if we don't have the answer right there, we have the relationship established that solve the problem, we'll work towards.
Thank you. I'll move over to this side and second adjustment side. I hope there's no hand there. Hi, everybody. Happy New Year. I want to wish everybody happy New Year. My name is Dimitri. I'm the owner of the Greek restaurant Campbellsville on 16 Main Street. So it's a big problem. And I know, like, I respect everybody's right. You know, I know a lot of people got a lot of problems. The bottom line is there's a problem, there's a big problem. And the more agencies they get involved, the more offices they get involved, usually nothing gets done. So that's the first note I want to make. I get discouraged, you know, my dream was to buy a restaurant in Nyack. I swear to God, you know, my dream. I came here like 25 years to buy a restaurant. It didn't happen. So we went, you know, in the city, in the Bronx, or whatever. So I finally got the opportunity to own a restaurant over here, and I'm very proud. And people in this city, they are really so nice. I swear to God, I worked on Madison Avenue. I had restaurants on the Lower East Side. I swear to God, you know, I had a restaurant in the Bronx, you know, different business. This is like a really nice. You guys live here. I don't live here, unfortunately. You know, maybe someday, if I stay in business. But you guys probably got like one of the best towns in the whole New York State. I'm not kidding. And for me, personally, it's the same that's going on. People are afraid to come out. You know, this is like a big problem. I don't, you know, I understand like everybody, or I respect everybody, like homeless people, people with mental issues and stuff like that. But like I said, when like a lot of agencies, a lot of people get involved, nothing gets done. Mr. Mayor, I bet you January 2026 will be here in the same office over here in the same, and nothing's gonna be done. If nothing is not, if something's done,
You're rooting for
please,
that.
you and everybody here for a month. If I'm betting you, nothing is gonna be done. You know, Joe Klein, especially Joe Klein, you know, he's putting a lot of effort. She knows, but we were here with Josh, my partner, last week to complain about what's going on. Sometimes we call the police, and I don't know if your officer, but the female police officer, I don't recall her name. Yes, Colleen. She's the one, in my eyes, that really cares. She's patrolling the areas, you know, and always asking about the restaurant, how good. And Mr. Joe Klein, he's the one, I didn't even know you were the mayor. You know, I didn't even know. It would be nice if you come around and introduce yourself to the local businesses here. You know, I didn't even know. I was talking with Dr. Hammond, you know, Dr. Dan, all this time. I didn't even know. I'm sorry, you know, like. Okay.
That's fine. If you, I feel as if I've been a very heavy presence recently, but if you don't know that I'm the mayor, then that's my fault.
Well, I never saw in my place. I would like to come, you know, with your family and everybody's family, especially in the summertime when we get the bummers outside and we put the tables. And we have tables outside and we have families with the kids and the grandkids coming in here and people next door doing weed, throwing up on the street, breaking bottles and, you know, talking about language. How about, you know, you guys take your kids and your grandkids, and you come and sit down. On me, everything on me. And I hardly make it. I don't have that kind of money, you know, to afford like to buy everybody dinner. But you guys can come over there and see what's going on. If you like that, you know, for me it's the same.
I'm sorry.
One second. I'll be done.
More.
I'll be done in 1 minute.
Yeah, you take it.
And what's the laws? Can you drink outside? Open bottle, closed bottle, can you do weed outside? Can you break and stuff outside? Can you like urine outside? Because everybody's going in the back in the alley, like she's saying over there where my garbage is. I'm not here to patrol. I'm not here to fight, you know, with everybody.
Can I take care of some of the problems on the in my restaurant because it hurts my business? Probably, but you know, I'm not here for that. You know, I'm here, you know, in this beautiful town. I'm very happy I have a business over here. And like I said, it was my dream to be here. But now it's becoming like very difficult.
I understand.
Very difficult. So I don't know what's the rules. Can you drink outside? Can you smoke weed?
No, well, you can smoke weed
Yeah,
outside, you're allowed to smoke weed, you can't.
So I can come like downstairs in the door of the village hall, drinking beer.
No.
Drinking stuff and smoking weed, and I'm gonna get arrested or not? If I
Inside, yeah.
in front of your building right here.
Alright,
Just to answer your question, no, you wouldn't be allowed to drink in front of Village Hall. You would be allowed to smoke. Anywhere you can smoke a cigarette, you're allowed to smoke marijuana. It's a weird quirk of the state law that we don't have any authority of. The only way we could get rid of it would be to ban smoking in the village of Nyack on the downtown streets, which I think would get some pushback. But thank you. Listen, I am sorry that it makes me feel terrible that you don't know, that you have not seen me. I feel like I'm around a lot, but and some people are thinking to themselves that what a blissful moment it would be for them to not know, to forget that I'm the mayor of Nyack because
I'm sorry,
they'd like
I'm
me
not
not to
see
be
you, I
there.
didn't know you were the mayor. It might be my mistake.
No, if you haven't seen me, you haven't seen me. It's not your fault. It's my fault. But I will say nothing wounded me more than you assuming that I have grandkids that I would bring to your restaurant because my kids are 12 and 14. I mean, I guess it's time I gotta work on the hair a little bit. Yeah, so Botox might be helpful. But thank you for that. I appreciate it. Listen, I worked very hard over December to promote Nyack as a place to come eat and a place to come shop and a place to come. And I hope it had its effect. We'll continue to do that. I will promise you, listen, we took on the issue with the panhandling, that got better. We took on the issue with the people sleeping in the square, that got better. We've now taken on the issue of people sleeping in the park, that got better. The challenge of people who are congregating in public in a business, and sometimes they're breaking the law because they're drinking, sometimes they're not breaking the law. It's a little bit of a, how do you catch them in the moment? And even if you catch them in the moment, it's a desk appearance ticket. Nobody's getting removed off the street. And it's a matter of that we'll address that more fully with the owner of that building. If we're going to put security, then maybe we should coordinate with the owner of the building about putting a security camera on the property and trying to dissuade some of that, because there is, like I said, it might be that all you do is push it down the street to the nearest spot, but sometimes you can get it to dissipate, and we're going to try to do that. And I am sorry. Listen, you don't know me, but like Big Red Books, he knows me very well. And he will tell you that I know he's having the same problem you have. I know Olive's having the same problem that you're having right around that block there. And it's and I'll be honest with you, we have some, people of mixed feelings and emotions about how the sensitivity of dealing with people who are experiencing homelessness or people who are, who are compelled by circumstance to rely on panhandling. There's a lot of mixed feelings about how we deal with that because it's very sensitive issues and they involve lots of things. I don't think anyone is feeling like we should let people, drink and in front of a card store out in public and generally raise hell. Nobody's thinking that any more than anybody was thinking it was a good idea, Andrea, for people to peel out in the marina parking lot and to stay up at 1 o'clock in the morning playing loud music and drinking and things like that. Another issue that we've been trying to address as well. You have the mic right now? Can I see a hand for anybody else who wants to speak or address? Let me get people who haven't spoken yet. The gentleman here.
You just touched on the topic that I'm here, and that is the Marina Park, beautiful park that I've been in Nyack. I've been a Rockland resident for 40 years, but I've been in Nyack for 3. Children off, although one came back yesterday with his wife and my first grandchild. I'm a little old, you Joe, and they had to leave Pasadena because of the fire. So we should all calibrate the issues that we're facing in our lives, with the tragedy out in Los Angeles. I came here specifically because of all the hard work that this town has done with the park, Marina parking lot. When we first came here, it was a little bit sad. And it has become, I'm proud to bring anybody who comes to visit to that park. The view is spectacular there, else using the view of a beautiful bridge, beautiful Hudson River. It's a wonderful place. I'm very proud to put it around. But then I have to get through the parking lot. And this is a much easier problem to solve. Some signage around the marina parking lot. I know that there is issues with the jurisdiction in the village and the OPD as far as where signs can go and what kind of traffic surveys have to be done to get that work done. But just some stop signs at logical locations would help that immensely.
You don't have stop signs inside
the parking lot, and there's a corner at the corner of Bird and River Street. Joe Carlin has a neighborhood calming petition that was circulated from Broadway to River Street, Main Street, and Bird, to try to calm that down. Some of the options are expensive, and if the village has to foot that bill, such as speed humps, would be very expensive. But just having the noise addressed by OPD after that 10 o'clock curfew.
We do have the curfew, and if there is noise, call 359-3700 and say, hey, there's people raising hell in the parking lot again, and they will come. And if they come with the lights, they will disperse. I will tell you, listen, I used to live in the Claremont. I used to live right across from that parking lot. I used to live right across from that park. I loved living there. I think it's a wonderful amenity, and I don't like it being abused. I do not like public spaces being abused for private purposes in any event, any case. So yeah, and we have put a lot of resources. I mean, we moved it used to be a 2 a.m. curfew, then it was 12, now it's 10. There's cameras where there didn't used to be cameras. There are lights where there didn't used to be lights. We've made a lot of changes, and we'll continue to address it if there's more stuff that can happen. But I do think the 10 p.m. curfew, with enforcement of it, should go a long way toward addressing some of the late night shenanigans that went on down there.
I hope so. The signage would really be helpful. There's 3 or 4 spots that need stop signs. And then
You're talking about stop signs, because we have a ton of signs down there about the curfew and stuff like that. You mean stop signs? So,
yeah, stop signs.
I didn't understand that at first. Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry. The corner of River and Bird, there was an accident, I believe, on December 20th. It's the same problem. One of the
corner of River and Bird you're talking about.
That is across from the entrance to the marina parking. If you come
You're talking about
up,
if you're driving down.
if you're
River-
coming,
If you're driving south on River is what you're talking about, you want to stop sign?
no,
There's already
if you're
stop
going,
signs.
if you're going west, if you're going west on Bird from the marina parking lot, at first intersection, there's no stop sign. And it is an obstructed corner, one corner.
Let's talk, it's a very narrow point, so let's talk, come.
We have all the paperwork with Joe Collin, and there's about 40 people that have signed that petition.
Okay, I understand, but I'm saying, just tell me what corner you're talking about.
Sure.
Rather than puzzle it through in front of.
Sure,
50
not
people.
a problem at all, not a problem. Make
Thank
sure
you.
you get a copy.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Is OPD monitoring those cameras in the lot? And are they doing directive control at the time?
Yeah, monitoring 20% of their.
Are they like, so what are the cameras? What's?
The cameras are there to some extent to put people on notice that they're on camera, and also they're there to record what's going on. So if things go on, there is some law breaking that we can then identify the situation. There's not somebody sitting in Orangetown or in Village Hall watching the cameras 24/7. That's never going to happen. But they are recording. So if something does happen and you say, hey, I saw someone do something at 10:47 last night, they can go back and check the tape if you call up and you have the specific complaints about a specific issue.
All night long.
That's the cameras do have a deterrence effect, but it is something where call the number, have them come down, they'll come down, they'll disperse. That's it. You gotta keep calling the number.
They keep coming back.
I
It's like a cat and mouse. I didn't even do this.
I understand that, and I'm saying that, what, I'm not gonna take away their cars, we're not gonna, slash their tires, like, there's a certain limit to what we're able to do under the law of people who are, driving back and forth, but yes, please call the number, that's what we can do. We do have the cameras in case there is some illegal activity that you think would benefit from review, but the village has access to it, and the police department has access to it. But thank you, Andrea, and I know I appreciate very much, I know we sometimes clash, but I do appreciate your constant, your passionate advocacy of that issue. Yes, Olive. I'm sorry, Mary Ann.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Listen, I have 2 buildings right there and it's private property, but I will welcome the cameras on my building. It would be, I always, for years, I've told about, so there's a drug deal going on right across the street. And I watch it from my upstairs office, all the time. You can see perfect view of the parking lot across the street and downstairs. So I welcome them to put a camera or 2 cameras or whatever they want, whatever they need to monitor that area.
And
Be very happy with
the
it.
card store, the representative of the owner of the building is saying the same thing,
Yeah,
so
well,
we'll talk to both.
Do a live feed to the
All right,
police station
well.
if they want to.
That's
All right.
That's what we did.
They have a good view probably of their downstairs. I have a good view across the street.
All right, do we have any more comments? I mean, I'll take as many as people have. Okay, go ahead.
One more.
No, well, behind you, just behind you now, then I'll take it back up front. I will give priority to people who haven't spoken before, but I didn't see anybody's hand up. Go ahead.
It's just that I live right there on that block where I have the beach restaurant, we have all this, so I know the neighborhood really, really well. There's a tall gentleman, his name is Robert, he wears a cowboy hat. He's the ringleader of a lot of trouble. If we can, and he's not even from Nyack. If we can figure out how to run him out, that would solve a lot of problems. Drugs there, his name is Robert.
Okay. I just wanna be careful about identifying individuals for a variety of reasons. But thank you. Why don't you pass that up? Here's somebody, the gentleman who spoke before. Is there anybody on the way that wants to speak? I don't wanna cut anybody off. I'll take questions as long as people wanna ask them. I'll stay as long as we have to. Pass it up, the
I'm
gentleman.
actually gonna pass on the question.
You okay? Okay. Hands up, anybody else? Thank you. Okay. Let's go. Anybody else hand up? Nobody? All right, well, thank you all for being here. I appreciate your time. At any time, I want you to take this down too with your phone, Anytime you want to reach out to me, I cannot promise to be immediately responsive because I get a lot of email, but my email is very easy, joerand@nyack.gov, joerand@nyack.gov. And anytime that there's an issue, I do eventually respond to all the emails. It can take me more than a few days sometimes, as some of you know who have emailed me, because I do get inundated at times and I do have a day job that takes up some of my time. But I do appreciate whenever someone reaches out. You're much better off emailing me than you are trying to reach me in a different way, like via the office phone or whatever, because I check that whenever I'm in the office, but that's not every day. All right, so thank you all for being here. I appreciate your time. I want to thank all the representatives from the different organizations that were here. I appreciate their weighing in. I appreciate them hearing the concerns. I appreciate Detective Sergeant Palazzolo for being here. Everybody have a great day and